Thank you so much for being here with us today, and to our friends joining us on Zoom, thank you for being with us as well. Welcome to stop number 10 on MASSTC's Waste No Water Library Tour. Woohoo! Launched in April, MASSTC's Waste No Water Library Tour is a year-long series to engage the public in 12 Cape towns, focusing on the wastewater successes and challenges each town faces. We are so happy to have them here today to educate us on how we can be better wastewater stewards. With us today are Brian Baumgartel, Director at MASSTC and Senior Environmental Specialist at the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, Sarah Wigginton, MASSTC's Program Manager and Wastewater Division Deputy Director, Brian Horsley, MASSTC's Project Assistant and Eco Sanitation Wizard, and Amy Dufault, who runs Communications for MASSTC. We're going to start with a Scientific American mini documentary, and then MASSTC will begin doing a short presentation, and afterwards we will open up the floor for lots of your questions. So without further ado, is MASSTC.
There's going to be bad smells, there's going to be fish kills, there's going to be a lot of algae getting entangled in your boat, in your propeller. And it's not a nice view. So in a way, we're decreasing the value of the land, which is precisely the same value that brought people here to enjoy an enjoyable summer.
Javier Lloret is a research scientist at the Marine Biological Laboratory on Cape Cod, a hook-shaped peninsula off Massachusetts, about 70 miles southeast of Boston.
One of the things that we're planning to do here, right in this location, is to collect some groundwater samples, just to check on the overall health of the ecosystem. And here we go. That's our filter sample. We will analyze for the nutrients.
Nearly 230,000 residents live on the Cape year-round. But in 2022, more than 4 million tourists visited its beaches and shores. Tourism is big business here, bringing in $1.4 billion to Barnstable County. And generally, those numbers grow each year. But the Cape has become a victim of its own success. More visitors and more homeowners have brought unchecked pollution to the area, threatening to permanently destroy its beaches and estuaries.
A new report finds that Cape Cod's bays and ponds continue to suffer from water pollution.
Cape Cod's bays and ponds are polluted with excess nutrients.
Decades of pollution continue to threaten both human health and ecosystems.
According to the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, a nonprofit watchdog group, in 2023, 90% of the area's coastal embayments required, quote, immediate restoration, unquote. And beach closures in response to high bacteria levels are now common throughout the busy summer months. What's behind these problems? Excess loads of nitrogen in the Cape's groundwater.
These systems are not adapted to these huge nutrient inputs. Basically, what it does is that it makes algae to grow like out of control.
Uncurbed algal growth has plagued the Cape's estuaries for years, but now residents and scientists such as Lloret fear that if nitrogen pollution isn't curbed immediately, the water may never recover. Nitrogen naturally occurs in the environment, but too much nitrogen in salt water results in massive overgrowths of algae. The algal blooms block light to plants at the bottom of the water and use up oxygen that's vital to sea life. Around the world, nitrogen pollution has become a big problem in estuaries such as the Chesapeake Bay. But unlike in the Chesapeake, the nitrogen on the Cape isn't from chicken feces or agricultural fertilizer. It's coming from human urine.
In some cases, probably like 90–95% of the nitrogen that is coming to these waterways comes from wastewater.
The Cape's nitrogen problem partially comes from its unique geology. Cape Cod was formed nearly 20,000 years ago when glaciers melted, leaving behind what is essentially a big pile of sand. This sand is extremely porous, and any surface water quickly filters into the groundwater below. This groundwater, including any pollutants, eventually makes its way to the Cape's shores. For tens of thousands of years, this wasn't a problem for those who lived on the Cape. But since the 1970s, the population has more than doubled. Tiny towns grew larger, and houses were built with little regulation. No central sewer system was set up, and most homeowners installed self-contained septic systems.
Well, what we see now is a cyanobacteria bloom that has been going for about a week to 10 days now.
Andrew Gottlieb, director of the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, has lived on the Cape his whole life.
People like Cape Cod and want to come to Cape Cod, and to a certain extent they're loving it to death. Across the region, we rely on 19th century technology to get rid of our wastewater. You know, we all basically have a hole in the backyard and our wastewater flows into it, and there's no nutrient removal, there's no even rudimentary treatment of the wastewater.
Gottlieb and other residents are pushing to build more sewers and wastewater treatment plants to replace the septic systems throughout the Cape. A standard septic system has two components: a large container that has an inflow and an outflow, and a leaching field that has perforated pipes surrounded by gravel or sand. The wastewater from the toilets or household appliances flows into the large container. Solids settle to the bottom, while liquids flow towards the pipes and into the ground.
What septic systems don't do, and to which they are not designed to do, is remove pretty much anything from the waste stream.
In contrast, sewer systems capture all home wastewater and deliver it to a central treatment facility through a series of pipes and pumping stations. The nitrogen never reaches the groundwater. But as of now, only 6 out of the 15 towns on Cape Cod have sewer systems. And even then, only a fraction of the homes in those towns are hooked up. 85% of the homes in the Cape still use septic tanks.
Our position is that continued reliance on septic systems is no longer acceptable.
I mean, we already have the technology. This is nothing new. I mean, we can just sewer the towns. We can just connect everyone to a centralized treatment facility. Now, the problem there is that it's extremely costly.
Officials estimate that the cost of building sewers throughout the Cape will be well over $4 billion. Some of that money will come from the state. Some towns in the county have also imposed a so-called Airbnb tax on short-term rentals, but that will not be enough.
We're going to reach a point where there's still going to be a gap there, and we're going to need to go to the public and ask them for additional revenue.
Mark Ells is the town manager of Barnstable, the largest town on the Cape. Barnstable is in the first few years of a 30-year plan to build sewers for all its residents. But the town of Barnstable says that even beyond the cost, the actual construction of the sewers presents a massive engineering puzzle.
So the challenge is, and we're already feeling it from our residents, the fatigue from construction.
Construction times are limited to the months before and after the high tourism season. Any road work chokes the Cape's already snarled traffic. And since the pandemic, construction labor and materials still remain in short supply. But not all Cape residents are waiting for the sewers to be built. Pat Ullman, a resident of Barnstable, replaced her old septic tank with an IA, or Innovative Alternative Septic System.
They dug up the whole driveway, and there is a 1,500-gallon septic tank underneath where I am standing.
In the town of Barnstable, where I live, they're expanding their sewer system, but it's probably a good 20 years before it's going to get out here where the ponds are. It's going to take a lot of time, and I'm not so sure our water has that much time.
Traditional septic systems in the Cape can release 85 milligrams or more per liter of nitrogen into the groundwater. Older AI systems average 19 milligrams per liter, while newer enhanced IA technologies, like this one being installed in Ullman's neighborhood, are capable of reducing that to less than 5 milligrams per liter. A big improvement, but still short of reducing all nitrogen from wastewater from entering the Cape's groundwater.
This is a septic tank. This would be under the ground in your house. Most of the magic here happens underground. You don't get to see most of it. You know, we see dirty water going in, we see clean water coming out, and we know that we've done the job that we set out to do.
Brian Baumgartel is director of the Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center, located on the Cape. Here, his team tests and certifies IA septic technology.
Anybody who believes that sewer is the only solution and anybody who believes that alternative septic systems are the only solution, both of them are wrong. What we really need is a blended approach. You know, use sewer where it makes sense, but think about where can you supplement sewer. So it's a balance of how do we protect the environment, but how do we do that in a way that doesn't really bankrupt the everyday Cape Cod resident?
Other residents, such as Hilda Mangay and Earl Barnhart, are going a step further. The couple live in Falmouth and are pushing to eliminate nitrogen completely by using urine diversion toilets in their home.
In our house, we have a urine diverting composting toilet that will recover all of the nutrients from the human waste. It has a urine diverting compartment in the front where the urine is diverted out and goes through one pipe to a storage. The urine from the urine diverting toilet comes down one tube, pipe, and goes into storage. The solid material from the composting toilet goes straight down this tube into these bins.
The sooner we get this nitrogen out of our wastewater, out of our water, the quicker we can maybe restore the ecosystem. The longer we wait, the further the ecosystem has degraded, and the less likely is that we ever can get it back.
For now, URED continues to monitor the nitrogen and algal levels in the water, uncertain about Cape Cod's future.
From my own research, the thing that is keeping me up at night right now is the fact that in the background, we have another major driver of change that is right there, which is climate change. So I'm very concerned that climate change has the potential to completely change the rules of the game from a scientific perspective, but also from a management perspective. We're going to have a new set of conditions, new set of temperatures, new precipitation ranges that are going to change the delivery of nutrients from land onto these ecosystems, the capacity of the landscape to absorb these nutrients. It is very difficult to predict what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and of course, 50 years from now.
Several audience members in that video. I gotta go back and sort of back. Okay.
All right, so I think I have the same outfit on. I said, well, I have like two outfits. There's this with an orange shirt and there's this with a blue shirt. That's pretty much it. Yeah, the boots are kind of standard issue. So thank you for coming today. Again, my name is Brian Baumgartel. I'm the director of the wastewater division at the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment. The Department of Health and Environment is one department amongst many at Barnstable County. We provide a number of services to the towns, like we do for wastewater, but in addition to that, through our department, we have public health nursing, emergency preparedness, our water quality lab. There's the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension that provides a whole host of services and educational opportunities, from healthy eating through how to grow roses in your backyard. And then, of course, the Cape Cod Commission and others provide planning services. And Barnstable County is a pretty wide-ranging group, and we provide a number of services that are pretty transparent to our day-to-day lives. You might not even know it all that we do. So if you ever get a chance, check out the county website to see what we do there. Let's start. There we go. Okay. So the Department of Health and Environment Wastewater Division is composed of 3 main programs. 2 of these are kind of combined into one now. The first of these is our Aquafund program, which is our low interest loan program for homeowners to replace their failed and failing septic systems. We actually have Alice Ryan, who's the program manager here today. She'll come up in a little bit to talk about that program. We have MASSTC, the Septic System Test Center, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a moment, but we also have Sarah Wigginton, Dr. Sarah Wigginton here with us. She's the program manager for MASSTC. And then the IA tracking database and SUP, or septic utility program, are kind of combined into one program now. That's the newest program amongst the group. And that program is run by David Igor, who couldn't be here today. Oops, there's a button here to navigate. There we go. All right. So how do we manage wastewater? Over on the left there is what was historically used on Cape Cod. That's a cesspool. A cesspool is more or less a hole that's been dug into the ground and all the waste goes into it. It separates out into different layers depending on how heavy it is. So the heavier sludgy material sinks to the bottom, the liquid floats to the top, and then those greases and fats and oils would be floating on top of the liquid. But it's all in one containment, and it all leaches out into the environment from there. These systems tend to provide it's barely a system as a hole in the ground, but cesspools provide minimal treatment. They're really just made to make wastewater go away. There's still a lot of pathogens and nutrients that migrate out of these. They tend to be fairly deep and therefore close to groundwater. And unfortunately, you might not think that there are a lot of these left in the area, but there still are quite a few cesspools around Cape Cod. You could go to town hall and ask how many there are, and unfortunately, they probably couldn't give you a very clear answer because it's in a lot of cases not known how many there are. Over on the right is the diagram of a what we call a conventional septic system, or Title V septic system, which is a little bit more advanced than a cesspool. We provide what's called primary treatment in the septic tank here. The septic tank is designed to take the solid portion of the wastewater and allow it to settle out, and also let the lighter than water materials like fats and oils and greases float to the top. And then we're taking out that middle fraction of wastewater and letting that continue on to the distribution box and then out to the drain field. These Title V systems were really meant to display or to disperse wastewater over a larger area. So rather than like with a cesspool, everything gets loaded pretty much along the sides of the cesspool. These Title V systems are intended to try to let wastewater leach out over this whole larger surface area, with the intention that it's removing more of those pathogenic organisms and making sure that the receiving material, the soils that are beneath the ground, are able to actually take that wastewater and receive it over a longer period of time. So for all intents and purposes, Title V is really a disposal code. I think in the video, Andrew Gottlieb says that they don't do anything, even rudimentary treatment. I think that's true to an extent. They actually are fairly effective at removal of pathogens, and also what's called BOD, biochemical oxygen demand, and another called TSS, which is total salvable solids. So those are some of the basic constituents of wastewater that we're trying to deal with. And Title V systems are pretty effective at that. But as you mentioned, they're not very good for things like nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, and then sort of variable performance on some of the other contaminants that are out there. This map at this point is a little bit old. This is from 2019, and some progress thankfully has been made in regards to wastewater treatment on Cape Cod, but you can see the sewered areas in 2019 are in black, and they're fairly limited, which comes as a surprise to a lot of people, but being you're from Barnstable, you probably have a pretty good sense of a decent amount of sewering in town, which is mostly focused on the core of town. They've been doing a lot of work around Finney's Lane in the last couple of years. The town of Chatham has a centralized sewer system that they've been working on expanding. Falmouth has long had a system. Bourne utilizes the wastewater treatment plant in Wareham. And then Provincetown has had for a few decades has had a low pressure or a vacuum flush sewer system. But this map is starting to fill in a little bit at this point. The town of Mashpee has been working on putting in their phase 1 project, I think, which is 400 homes or so along their core sewering area. Their plant, I think they're intending to get started up somewhere around in January or so. The town of Harwich has been diligently working on their sewering area. Yarmouth is undergoing work now. I think that's pretty much it for new sewering infrastructure that's going on at the moment. Which leaves, after you've subtracted out the sewered areas, you look at the brown areas, that's everywhere where there's some sort of a property that's reliant on most likely a standard septic system, or worse yet, a cesspool. And that's quite a bit. So, or I guess it's about 85%. So I'm going to invite Sarah to come up to talk a little bit about the science of how nitrogen removing systems work.
All right, we'll keep it really broad and we won't get too far into the science. We'll just give you the basic level you need to sort of understand how these systems work. So Brian mentioned that, you have in a regular system, you have a septic tank and that leads to a dispersal field or a leach field. And this doesn't really do anything for our nitrogen removal. And that's because you have to set up the right conditions for bacteria to do the nitrogen removal. And that's exactly what occurs in an IA septic system. So in an IA system, you basically have 2 steps. You have an aerated step that takes care of part of the nitrogen, it transforms it to a different form. And then you have an area of the IA tank where you'll have really low oxygen and you'll also have carbon. A lot of the systems use wood chips as that carbon source, and that fuels the bacteria to be able to do the job of removing the nitrogen. So in an eggshell, that's really how almost all of the nitrogen removal systems work. It's really just 2 steps. You're oxygenating the water to do 1 step, and then you're adding the carbon source to do the 2nd step. And ideally, at the end of that process, all of the nitrogen has turned back into inert nitrogen gas that we're all breathing, makes up most of our atmosphere. These are just a few examples of the potential IA systems that are available to Barnstable County residents. These are going from that side over. We have the Nitro system by Clean2. Then in the middle, there's a FujiClean CRX that actually does nitrogen and phosphorus removal. And it actually is in the yard of Jane and Steve. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being project participants. And then there's also an Advantex system on the far right. The Nitro and the Advantex have been named best available nitrogen technology by the DEP. So if you're looking for those lists with the state, those 2 will appear on it. The FujiClean is still in a piloting phase, so it's just not rolled out as much. Brian's not here, but I can give you one on here. Okay. So our eco sanitation expert is not here. Brian Horsley is probably actually working on eco sanitation projects back at MASSTC. He's been kind of neck deep in that work all summer. We've been working with the town of Falmouth under an intermunicipal agreement to do a feasibility study for eco sanitation. Eco sanitation is a shift in paradigms from defecating and urinating into clean water. And we're just moving to where we're not doing that into clean, potable water. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Composting toilets, urine diversion. And we are really looking at that with that IMA with Falmouth, we are really focused on urine diversion. Oh, and I guess I should say, there are a lot of hurdles to urine diversion and other sorts of eco sanitation. There are regulatory hurdles, the DEP Title V, there's no general approval. There's also plumbing board issues. There's no approved plumbing fixtures that will work with the UD systems that are available. And there's also what do we do with the final product? There's a lot of concern from state regulators that this is, potentially pathogenic. And we need to, do something to make sure that we are protecting human health, because that DEP is their main goal, making sure that we are not interacting with our waste in a way that might make us sick. So that's just to sort of outline a few of the hurdles that exist with eco-sanitation and urine diversion. But like I said, we're working really hard to try to overcome those hurdles. All right, I'm gonna invite Alice up. Push down.
Good afternoon, Alice Ryan, Program Manager for Cape Cod Aqua Fund, and we are a piece of the puzzle here. Some people will ask, well, how do I pay for this? So the whole purpose of Cape Cod Aqua Fund is to help homeowners upgrade their systems, replace their systems, sewer connections, IA systems. We offer 20-year term loans, they're betterment agreements, and we're here to help everybody as much as we can so that we can help clean up the water.
And then last but not least, I'll talk on this because, as I said, David is not here. The septic utility program is one of the newest programs that we have at Barnstable County. The basic concept behind a septic utility program, or what's called a responsible management entity, is if towns decide to embark on utilization of IA technologies in a broader context beyond what they're currently doing, and maybe doing watershed scale deployments of IA technologies, you need to make sure that they're functioning properly. Right now, if you have an IA system, you have to have a contract in perpetuity with a private contractor. Those contracts can get a bit expensive. It's not really the most equitable way of approaching this particular problem. So what the septic utility can do is provide a set of services which are in a lot of ways similar to sewer utility. But rather than managing some centralized treatment plant and the collection system that goes with it, they're monitoring and maintaining those individual systems. So we're able to ensure optimal performance. So we have staff going out to actually monitor the systems. We're working with those same private sector contractors to get that operation and maintenance work done, but it's a lot more tightly tied to the compliance system that the town has responsibility for. Properly maintained system lasts a lot longer than one that is ignored or abused. But really the basic concept with this program is to support the towns and homeowners with really a holistic program so that they're not fully responsible for that long-term maintenance and monitoring that goes with the technology. If you're on sewer, if you get the benefit of a sewer, you get the whole package of sewer programs, right? Like if something breaks at the treatment plant, we all don't have to go down and spend an hour there to go and fix it, right? And we don't have to call a contractor to go and fix our little piece of the treatment plant. But when your IA system breaks down, and particularly where you've been required to put it in to do the same thing that folks on sewer are doing, there's a little bit of an equity problem there in that you don't get any real level of support as things stand right now. If your system breaks down, you have to call in your operation and maintenance guy who's probably going to charge you, $80 an hour to come out and look at your system and effect a repair, which could, be a couple $1,000s just for a repair. So this program is intended to help address some of those costs. Overall, bring the cost of a larger IA septic system program down and to provide support to homeowners so that they're not left to do all of this work on their own. So the basic message here is, despite the depressing nature of this video that we started with, the technology exists. We have septic system technologies, these advanced septic system technologies that are able to get treatment that's in a lot of ways equivalent to sewering systems. Doing nothing is not an option. I think we all understand that at this point, we need to do something. Our waterways are quickly declining. I've lived on Cape Cod for 16 years. And anecdotally, I can say it's a lot easier to find things like that now than it was even 16 years ago. You don't even have to really look for algae blooms anymore. They're just kind of everywhere and very obvious and in our face. The financing is available through the wonderful Osterville program. And we're also working on putting together that spectrum of services to help IA system owners do their part. But really, the community commitment is required to make sure that everybody plays their part. So we're going to open it up to questions because I think that's the best part of these tours is give you the opportunity to ask any question you'd like. But if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, we have all of those available. Amy manages those and does a wonderful job making sure that our faces are on there as much as possible. We should as much to some of our chagrin sometimes, but we're on there at least.
We'll also say sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already.
If you haven't signed, yeah, I'm gonna use the way. So right over there is the sign up for the newsletter. Please put your name down on there. Our newsletter goes out about every 2 weeks or so, depending, sometimes more frequently. You get a lot of information about what's going on at MASSTC or generally in the wastewater world, and what some of our colleagues are doing as well. So that's that. We're going to open it up to questions. We're all available to answer, and thank you. Yes.
We're relatively new homeowners, in Falmouth, and we're having some issues getting full information on our septic and what was actually installed 10 years ago and before we purchased the home. And so with your SUP program, would that be something that somebody could come out and educate us and how it works and if any changes need to be made or something like that? I guess I'm not fully clear on what that program, how we can utilize that program.
But that program is more geared toward these nitrogen sensitive areas that we've been talking a lot about, but we're a service that's available. So, you know, if you want to learn more about your system, we're more than willing to, you know, come talk to you about it, or you know, we offer tours quite frequently at the test center. There's a lot of opportunities for engagement. I mean, the most obvious place to get information on your system is from your Board of Health, but sometimes the records aren't so
They're
great.
not there.
So that, okay.
Some time ago, and they don't have the original.
Okay, yeah, there should be, you know, if you bought it in the last 10 years, there should be an inspection that was done.
Yeah,
before you
yeah,
purchased the
we
property.
have it, yeah.
All those things, so. Is it an advanced technology or a standard?
So
system?
it says it has a IA leach field aspect of it. So we have the original tank with a distribution box, and I don't want to take too much time on it, but then the IA leach field. So I just don't know what that means. And I saw some plans, so I just want to be more educated on it.
Okay.
And then the second part of my question is if we did want to upgrade either from urine diversion or doing some sort of nitrogen removal system, does the Aqua Fund pay, do they have funding for that as well, urine diversion as well as a new septic?
Currently, we're not funding urine diversion. We hope to get to that point, but at the moment, we do not do urine diversion.
That's right. We're supposed to repeat the questions for the benefit.
Oh, sorry.
Right, that thing only records that way.
So the question was, is the Aqua Fund program available for urine diversion projects, which unfortunately at this point it's not. I think, as Alice said, once we get further along with urine diversion as a potential option, which Brian Horsley is investigating right now, as we've learned, we'll be able to make those opportunities more available for.
Okay.
Yeah, and afterwards, if you want to grab me afterwards, we could talk about your system a little bit more if you'd like.
Good question. I know Falmouth is looking to do a $1.9 million pilot program on urine diversion, and it's sort of stalled out at the moment. But is there any way to make it more countywide, to make it more sort of acceptable, so that Falmouth isn't taking all the onus of what's going on? If we could offer it to 50 people in Barnstable or something, or.
So the question is, Falmouth has been leading with a potential $1.9 million project to investigate urine diversion, and is that program potentially expandable out to other communities in the county, such as the town of Barnstable, presumably? I don't think there's anything necessarily that restricts it to Falmouth. It's just that Falmouth said, hey, we want to pay for something, you know, we want to do some sort of a study. So we've been working primarily with them, but I think given other sources of funding, if we can find grant funds, or if the town is willing to put up some money to help with the sampling and those types of things, I see no reason for it to be restricted to Falmouth. I think the more the merrier. And, you know, it definitely helps get the project done quicker because it's a larger pool of potential volunteers.
because the road to general approval is 50 systems, as you said, so it would be great, but if we could extend that, as Brian said, the funding from Falmouth won't be usable by Falmouth residents, but it would be great if other towns were also participating, both with participants and, you know, with town funds if possible.
I'm sure Falmouth would be happy to have somebody else pay for some of it.
That's good. That's a really good point, because the education, the results are going to benefit everybody. And you're a county resource. So to me, it seems like a very, very logical thing. I wondered if you could comment on what you're going to do, what's involved with your expansion. I know you've got quite a bit of extra funding and you have some building plans. And one detail on that, I noticed that with the lab upgrade, you're going to be able to detect some of the common viruses that are found in wastewater, which currently I don't think we're doing at all in the cave. And I wondered if that was something that is being looked towards, because that's a great way to know what's coming down the road 2 or 3 weeks if you're able to test wastewater for.
Yeah, I'll talk about half the project and I'll let Sarah talk about the laboratory piece. So we received 2 batches of money. The first was 1.3 million from the county from its American Rescue Plan Act allotment. That first phase of this project was to put together some new office space for MASSTC and the other programs that we have. If anybody here has visited us at MASSTC, you know it's a very Spartan facility. The trailer that we use as our operational hub is circa 1984, I think. Nobody's fallen through the floor lately, so we're doing enough. Yeah, I think that was the last one to fall through the floor. So we're in the process of replacing that building. It's outlived its useful life. In addition to that, though, we're also creating really a community resource and an educational center to make sure that everybody understands, you know, what these systems are, how they function. And get really that big sort of public education piece going a little bit more. We do these library tours and try to meet people where they are, but we also want to do some in-house programming as well. And then offering trainings and workforce development opportunities to make sure that the folks who are going to be maintaining and operating and installing all of this infrastructure we're doing right now, whether you're talking about on-site systems or sewer plants, you need somebody to run those things. They need proper training. We're going to look to provide some of those opportunities for them to learn. And then working with the schools, the high schools, community college, et cetera, to try to get younger folks interested in this particular industry is really important to us. You know, Cape Cod generally skews with an older population, which is a problem really across the entirety of the water industry. There are a lot of folks retiring out of water and wastewater careers and not a lot of people coming in. So we're trying to make it more interesting for those kids who might choose carpentry instead, which, I mean, you get to sling a hammer. I don't know why you wouldn't be more interested, but I think wastewater is pretty cool. But also to catch those mid-career changers that are out there that are doing something that they started out doing and might want to change. So that's the first piece of this, is that clean water center. And then Sarah's going to talk a little bit about the laboratory, which is the second half of this project. We received another $2 million from the state's Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, right? I always mess that up, MTC, to create this laboratory space and to also create a workshop space that's really geared toward technology development. So I'm going to let Sarah talk about that piece.
Yeah, so Brian said the second batch of money is really all about innovation. It's MassTech Collaborative's innovation fund that funded this. And, you know, to Jane's point, one of the pieces of that is some molecular testing that we're going to be able to do that does detect not just, right now we look at culturable stuff in our lab, which is just stuff you can go grow on a petri dish. And that's not very many of the viruses that we're worried about. It's more of just indicators. But with this new technology that's being funded by the MassTech Collaborative, we're going to be able to actually look, okay, it's not just, okay, some viruses that are associated with our gut are breaking through. We're going to say, oh, it's norovirus, or it's adenovirus, or specific virus, SARS, you know, something's COVID specific that we can say it's in our wastewater at this concentration. And that has obviously a lot of public health applications. And we're actually, this technology is being used currently by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. They're like some of the first people doing this, and they're using our wastewater to perfect these standard operating procedures. So we're kind of hoping to piggyback on those efforts. And the other piece of the innovation expansion, like Brian said, is a prefab workshop for clientele to be able to come and do the innovation that needs to happen on site and have access to wastewater on site, not just for the systems that they're running for, certifications, but to, again, be able to innovate and, add technologies to our toolbox.
So collectively, we're calling that the center, at least for now. So, but thank you for that.
That sounds exciting. It sounds like you might need a few more staff to do all this teaching and everything else.
Well, we're opportunistic. We're looking for grant opportunities for those things. So
Okay.
Hear about some money. Yes.
So first of all, I thought the video is really informative, so thanks for putting that together. And I also just want to say thank you to everybody who's been working on this issue and helping to educate the public. I have read more about wastewater treatments and P diversion and sewer upgrades in the last 2 years. And it's a pretty hot topic. And there's clearly a lot of effort both on the agency side and on the public side, and I just wanted to say thank you. It's an interesting time to try and look at your footprint, whether it's wastewater, whether it's time to get an EV, whether it's time to put solar in your house, whether you're supposed to drop money on swapping out your toilets so that you could go with a P diversion program. There's just a lot coming at residents now. And I think there's a kind of got to pick your battles and where a homeowner, where a resident, or somebody who cares is going to put their money to make a difference. So at the end of this program, I was really curious. I felt a little confused about what I was supposed to do. It seems like there's some things that you know and some things that you don't know, but I'm not really sure how I can make a difference. And I appreciate your question about, first of all, let's start with what's in the ground at a home and then assess what the solution would be from there. I am completely serious with my question.
Yeah.
Can I pee in a jug and pour it on my plants and make a difference?
Yes.
If there's no company, at the house, is that helping divert pee out of my septic system and do something better as I distribute it around plants, using it as fertilizer? Question one. Question two is, when you look at clusters of the larger population densities, whether it's visitor serving uses or apartment buildings or the places where you're going to have a big impact of wastewater, what's the solutions for those larger properties? Are there AI systems big enough to handle those larger projects? What's the answer on those? And are those the low-hanging fruit in this initial rollout?
Okay, let me start at the beginning. First, thank you for the compliment, and the team that I have at MASSTC is wonderful. They work very hard. They're very passionate about what they do. We're 3 people out of 17 on the team right now. So thank you, really appreciate that. So to answer your first question, peeing in a jug, I'll give you 2 answers. I'll give you my official government bureaucrat answer, which is, you're not supposed to do that, okay? It's not legally sanctioned by MassDEP right now. We're working on getting there, but it's not, I can't say, hey, we'll do it. That's my official answer as government bureaucrat right now. My more like homeowner who wants to do better for the world answer is that, yes, you do make a difference when you do that. If you're separating your urine from your waste stream, and rather than with the Title V system, when you kind of, oops, I knew I was going to hit the wrong button for this. If you look at this slide, okay. Rather than with our standard systems where we take all of our wastewater, our urine included, and really try to get it what's effectively as close to groundwater as we can, right? there's no soil bacteria down there that do a lot of work for us. It's very poor filtering media, okay?
Yeah.
The bacteria that break down our waste, our urine and our feces and all that stuff, they evolved on the plains in the upper soil horizons. That's where they live. So if you're applying your urine up on a higher soil profile, you are essentially giving that urine the best place to break down. And you're providing fertilizer for the plants that are there. So there are a lot of potential benefits to actually doing that. Now, I wouldn't say, apply it at 100% strength. It's something you'd want to dilute, so you're not, there's a lot of salt in urine, you can get salt buildup, those kinds of things. So my official government bureaucrat answer is don't do that. But my second answer is, if you are doing it, yes, you are providing a benefit to the environment.
Thank you.
What was this? What was this? Sorry for that one. Oh, so for condo associations and those kinds of things. I personally think as we look toward future development on Cape Cod, we need to put those things where the infrastructure already exists, rather than putting those things out in places where there's no treatment infrastructure in the first place. So, I think in particular, the town of Barnstable did a really good thing by putting one of those larger apartment complexes on Industrial Drive out where there's actually sewer treatment infrastructure. Like focus those things where they should be instead of trying to disperse them everywhere. That's what put us here in the first place is, we all love our single family homes and we all built them just about the same time. And, now we've ended up with this massively dispersed set of buildings that are contributing. So, but in those cases where maybe you have an existing building or you need to build further away from that infrastructure, there are larger scale, more on-site technologies that are able to treat larger flows like that. There's everything, really, when you come to wastewater treatment, there's everything from peeing in a jug, small scale, right, to household system, to cluster systems, which are, maybe 5, 6, 7 houses, to package plants, which are intended to treat maybe smaller neighborhoods, 50, 75 houses, on up to, full scale, like Deer Island, Boston treatment. So there's a treatment, whatever size housing or, building you have, there's a treatment system for you, is basically the idea there. I think we need to look at those things more frequently. And in particular, when it comes to even single family homes where you have opportunities to maybe not do an on-site system for each and every one of them, but where you can do cluster systems and tie 5, 6 houses into one system. I think there's a lot of benefit to doing that. And then also being, open and willing to look at seriously at urine diversion and those other composting toilets and those other concepts, because they absolutely have a place in this whole massive puzzle that we've been working on.
Give the picture of Earl and Hilda's little cubes with the red. Red funnel.
They were in the video, but they're not in that
Okay.
picture.
Closest, no, we don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, the little cubies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you come to the test center, we have them, we use them at MASSTC, we practice what we preach there, so we do urine diversion there. Yes.
We made sure that they did.
That's good. Yep. Let me point out one thing real quick before, because I want to come back to that. This new clean water center that we've been putting together, that center features composting and urine diversion in our bathrooms. So it all gets separated out and treated separately. We also are separating out our gray water, our rainwater, all those things. We're trying to capture every source of water and reutilize it right on site, rather than just putting it back into the environment. So reducing single-use water. Sorry, thank you.
First of all, anybody interested, we do give tours, and it's a green center, and we have eco toilets already for 25 years in our house, different kinds. So you can come and look at them, how they function, and we have some new ones that are not installed. So if you're interested, the Green Center Inc. at gmail.com, and just give us a note and we'll tell you when the next one is. We have one on Saturday, we have another one, and when you feel that. So I have some comments about it. There was an issue here about climate. Climate is a huge issue. It's one of the driving forces for me to do all this work. All the work that you have seen so far, sewers and ice that are acceptable now and approved, They're incredibly energy intensive and wasteful. They waste energy, they waste nutrients, and they waste water. And we cannot continue to do that for the rest of our lives or the futures. It's not a future for me. So even though it's accepted and it's approved, not all things that are approved for MASSTC, which runs about 20 years, 30 years behind in their regulations, means that it's right. Even though we have approved gasoline in our cars, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing to do. So, so I have a really big issue because we are throwing away all our nutrients, the nitrogen most, and everybody's happy. Oh, the nitrogen's gone. The nitrogen we need for agriculture. We cannot keep making it. The phosphorus we need, it's a limited source. It's being wasted right now. And sewer plants and IAs do not clean everything. They only remove nitrogen, sometimes phosphorus a little bit. But that phosphorus, when it's so-called kept out of the water, is no longer available. So all the nutrients are gone. And that, as for me, is not a sustainable way to go into the future for our kids. And all these systems are extremely expensive. So our kids are left with a huge debt and left with systems that are not cleaning the environment. They're putting the nutrients from one place into another one, except for nitrogen. So it's a really, really big concern. I'm really glad there's a test center that's open-minded and is looking into other things. But to put billions of dollars into a system that we think is unsustainable financially and ecologically is not the right direction. So I'm sorry to bring the bad news, but there is a cheaper way, and in your version, we would think about it. Yes, we might have to change our appliances, and it's in a house. That's the biggest issue with MASSTC. It's infinitely cheaper. Imagine that one outfall is $80 million, not considering the design. That's only for a few thousand houses in Falmouth. And then all the stuff goes in the ocean. And $80 million could give us a lot of testing at MASSTC to do a little bit more urine diversion testing and giving people samples. So that's where I have a real big concern. I have a question though.
Okay.
Do IAs make more sludge? Because it never comes up what happens with all this stuff. There's an IA that's advanced, but then I don't hear where the stuff goes. And some of them I've heard that it makes more sludge. The sludge goes into the sewer plant. The sewer plant doesn't really treat it, it goes into sludge and it gets incinerated. So I think it would be nice for people to understand what really happens to all the nutrients that go in an IA system.
No, sludge is a major problem when it comes to wastewater treatment. So anybody who's had a septic system knows you have to pump it somewhat frequently. It has to go somewhere, right? That's sludgy material. Septic system that's pretty well broken down. It's one of the good things about septic systems is that it sits there for a long time and has a long time for that material to break down into its most basic constituents. The downside to that means that there's not really a whole lot more treatment that can go on there. So after you get it pumped out, usually that's going to some sort of a wastewater treatment plant, as Hildy said. The wastewater treatment plants don't do a whole lot with it. Some of them, Barnstable included, they do some what's called dewatering. And dewatering is not what it sounds like. Dewatering, so sludge that leaves that plant, or really any plant, is still something like 95 to 98% water. It's still mostly water. So which is a crazy thought because yes, as Hildy said, most of that material right now is going to an incineration plant in Rhode Island. So we're trucking material that's like 95 to 98% water from all of the treatment facilities on Cape Cod. It's going to Rhode Island, or in some cases it will be going even further than Rhode Island to be burned, which is a shame. There's another wasted resource. Sludge material has also a pretty significant problem in that it readily contains PFAS. PFAS is a major contaminant, which I'm sure everybody in this room has probably heard about at this point. You can't really escape the news without hearing about PFAS now. Sludge contains PFAS, and it's one of the reasons why it's strictly being incinerated in a lot of cases now. Wastewater, sludge, municipal biosolids included, in many parts of the country historically have been dried and land applied as an agricultural fertilizer. It's been a beneficial reuse for millennia, really. We've always done it as a human species. In fact, you can buy some of it at the local hardware store right now. It's called Milorganite. It's a product you can buy, which is municipal wastewater sludge. It's biosolid. But unfortunately, because we're starting to see this PFAS crop up in sludge, we're finding contamination issues in farmlands across the United States. It's been there for decades. And yeah, in our animals. So, I mean, it's everywhere at this point. But PFAS materials have been in use since the 1940s. The companies that produce them, there's some suspicion that they've known since the 80s that they're going to be a problem. So we've been using them this entire time, unknowingly applying all this material through our sludge onto our agricultural lands. And now across the country, farmers are finding that their fields are contaminated with this material, and in some cases, they're not able to do anything with it, particularly in the state of Maine. They have some pretty strict limits up there now. So land application of biosolids is slowly, it's a destination for this material that's slowly being turned off because of PFAS. Until we come up with some way of removing the PFAS and treating it, we're kind of stuck with this situation. That's unfortunately a situation where we actually absolutely need treatment, and PFAS isn't something we can really reuse. So this is becoming a national problem. There aren't any real good solutions at this point. There are a lot of companies trying to develop technologies to remediate it, but we're ways off from that. And until we do, every single day that we use many consumer products in our homes, you have a waterproof jacket, an oil-proof pair of pants, if you have anything that's flame retardant, if you have to use carpet cleaner, if you have stain guard carpets, if you have furniture in your house, you have Teflon pans, you're producing PFAS in your own home and putting it into our groundwater. You didn't know, but now you do. So this is a major problem. It's in our sludge. We don't know what to do with it. And the states are starting to say, we're not taking it anymore. So we're going to have this major problem with not being able to dispose of sludge until we can figure out how to get the PFAS out. Yes.
So the good news is that urine has hardly any PFAS. Our body bioaccumulates, and there's been studies done at Fitchburg Institute in Vermont, and there's more PFAS in the rain than there is in the urine. So that's the good news for urine diversion. If you have less urine in a sewer plant, if we would take all our urine out before it gets into the sewer plant, we would have much less sludge, because all the biology is to remove the nitrogen from the urine, which is 80% of the wastewater. So if we could take out the urine from our waste stream, then the sewer plants would be much more efficient and produce much less sludge, which would help all this other stuff from there on. But that has never been considered. We always think only about making individual homes urine diversion, but it really should be done all across for nitrogen reclaiming and for all the nutrients, but also for all these other issues, climate, energy, chemicals that are used, and the amount of sludge that now gets shipped as far as Ohio and Florida and Pennsylvania. And it's unimaginable that we never want that. So that's why I pitch for urine diversion everywhere. It should be mandated everywhere. And not spend $80 million on one little sewer pipe.
The only thing I would say is it's still in our gray water. We still need to figure out.
Sure, but
still need
a
to
whole lot
figure it
less.
out. Yeah, still need to figure out.
For the fertilizer, it's more than less.
So any, yes.
But I also want to be respectful if anybody else wants to ask a question. Sort of next steps, right? So IA technology, it's advancing, getting better handle on how it works and how well it works. Got the founded pilot program moving forward. It looks like there's two issues that are being sort of further evaluated. One is how do you handle a gift of public funds with the funding that would go into a pilot program? I'm sure smart people will work that out. The second one is the state approval of the fixtures themselves. Can you all talk a little bit more about what's the path forward on that? What's your level of confidence that a fairly rapid resolution is going to be made on that front? And that some sort of economically feasible fixture is going to come out so that people who want to do this can do it?
So the answer to that is rooted in economics. A lot of these fixtures have been developed in Europe, and to be approved in the United States, these fixtures have to meet certain standards, which they don't have to meet in Europe to meet plumbing board approval. And if there's no market in the United States, there's no incentive for those companies that produce these fixtures to move themselves through that process of getting approval. So you need a market for them to want to come here, but we can't develop the market because they're not approved. We've got like I don't think that's strictly a catch-22, but similar. Yeah, kind of in the same vein, a little bit of circular logic. It's important that we have projects like this where we can get pilot approval for fixtures so that we can, you know, start to develop that potential market so that these companies have an interest in coming to the States, so that they want to go through that approval process, because it may involve making modifications to their products. The plumbing code is fairly strict when it comes to toilet fixtures, and like it has to be bolted to the floor. It has to have flanges on it. Like it has to be able to hold a certain amount of weight. And the standards in Europe are just different. You know, it doesn't have to be bolted to the ground in Europe, but to the floor, which is interesting. You know, we recently brought in a Wolfman Eco toilet into the test center, and we're like, well, how do we bolt this to the floor? Like, how do you attach this? And there's no way to do that. I don't understand how that works, but so that's one of the reasons. So they may have to make some modifications to their product, and there's not much of a market right now in existence that they can use because it's not regulated to be used. So, you know, that's kind of the loop we're stuck in right now. We need pilot projects to demonstrate that these things can be used safely in homes, so that companies see there's a market, so that they want to go through that whole process of getting approvals in the States.
Do you see hope for another look at the standards themselves and some modifications on the regulation side?
There's always hope. There's always hope. It just needs people who are willing to do that work, you know. Plumbing board, National Plumbing Board meets once or twice a year. I'm not even sure how frequently. You need to get in front of those folks, you know, and you need to have a willing company that's willing to go through the process.
I have a little bit about that, just sort of breaking news from the, IMA from the Falmouth project. We have a great group of consultants, including the Rich Earth Institute and a few others. And we've heard from them recently, they're working directly with the plumbing board to try to get provisional approval for this pilot project that will hopefully lead to the general approvals that Brian is talking about. That's one of the hurdles, is to get that provisional approval. They're working really diligently. And one of the things that has come out of this project is, well, I don't know if it's come out of this project, but we've connected with American Standard, who is looking to roll out toilets of this nature for an American consumer. So we have no idea what the timeline is on that, but we know that they're seeing the growing market. So unfortunately, I can't give you a good timeline. The provisional approval, we're very, very hopeful that will be a much shorter timeline than something like, an American Standard getting their general approvals, but progress. Yeah, progress.
Progress. Yeah. And as E. Crocker always says, and it's not, I don't think it's his statement, but don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You know, we need to be able to move forward and figure out what the pathway forward. IA systems might not be perfect, but as we're trying to figure out all of these better ways of doing things, we need to keep moving forward, and that's the really important thing. So if it means that we have to occasionally vote for a sewer article in town, we still need to do some of those things. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
That's the good news.
I
There
love
are
this.
some fixtures that are approved. Incinerating toilets are approved.
Yep.
And festival permit. The Phoenix is approved. There's some that are approved.
No urine diversion.
No urine.
No.
Yeah.
Right, that's what we were specifying, but there are eco.
They are urine diversion. They're not
Yes.
urine collecting.
Correct, yeah, that's a good point,
Very
yes.
different, because we want to
Yeah.
get urine out.
Mhm,
That
yeah.
is the essential. The collection is not essential, and MASSTC was not interested in that part. They were only interested in the effluent, how much the effluent would go down in the concentration of nitrogen. The collection is just part of the UD program to get data, but that's a totally different issue.
I say a couple of things.
Absolutely, yes.
I always talk.
Well, we're in your backyard.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. You know, net, we're preaching to the choir. Jane, Steve, Gordon, I mean, the team, our team from Urine Diversion. You're the only couple I don't know. Everybody else, okay? And the bottom line is, you know, each of us needs to find 10 other people to get interested in this. It always frustrates me, with no disrespect or, you know, not that I don't have concerns about the wind farms and all the related stuff, but my last meetings in this room have been filled with 100 people yelling and screaming about wind farms. That's a thing, but it always startles me that people aren't worried about what's happening right now, what's happening every day they flush their toilet or take a shower. It's all happening, and we're polluting our groundwater all the time. And so this team, I want to thank you guys for all the work that you've done, that you are doing. You know, Brian and Sarah, we really haven't met each other, but thank you, Allison. And so, you know, I would just say, what you said in the beginning when I walked in, and I know I walked in and out, was we need to be working in parallel tracks. We're very supportive of sewer expansion in the town of Barnstable. Has to happen, needs to happen, but it's going to cost billions, plural, of dollars. And so even while we're doing that, we need to do these other things. So even while I think I'm very optimistic about some of the IA systems that we're working on, the nitro system, you know, looking great. Nitrex, great opportunity. There are going to be others for sure. Urine diversion, an opportunity, but it needs to be, you know, we need to work in these parallel tracks. You know, and Fuji Clean, sorry, Jane. You know, I mean, there are all these parallel tracks that we need to be working on. So to me, the like important thing is talk to your town councilor, talk to your board of health, talk to the people that have the levers to motivate people and not just encourage them, but make them do this in places where it's critically important. I tell the story about a person down the street here on Bay Street, at the end of Osterville, lives on North Bay, bought a lot for $3 million, built a house for another $3 million, told us, I'm gonna put in one of the systems, I love it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and then called me not that long ago and said, oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it because building costs have gone up so high. I just can't do it. And I said, this is $20,000. And you're spending $6 or $7 million. I know, I'm sorry, I feel bad. Well, you know what, feeling bad is not good enough. So we actually have to make sure that people who live in places that are critical for our drinking water, for our lakes and ponds, for our estuary, they have to do it. They should have to do it. You really shouldn't have a choice, but that doesn't mean they should have to pay for the whole thing. And so we've got financing ability. I believe the town should also be providing cash incentives or incentives through tax rebates of some kind, because these things are expensive. They're not cheap. But you know, the cost to society is so high that we really can't afford not to do it. So that's my fully pulpit comment. But you know, I love that we've got a group here that cares. We just need to make the tent bigger, really. So thanks, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Go ahead.
Collaboration is so important. We've got like so many collaborators and it's great.
Any other questions? Yes.
So you have a lot of technologies being tested there. How do we find out the progress and the efficacy of those? Do we have to go to the company individually and ask for their public knowledge? Or do you guys, is there a central place to see what's going on with all that?
Yep. So if you go to masstc.org, we have a technologies page on there. You can look at the actual performance data of all the existing IA technologies that have been approved right now. So if you want to see how well they're doing and make your own conclusion, we don't make conclusions for you. We provide you with the data so you can make that assessment yourself, which is pretty easy to do. You look at the chart and it says, well, these are like way up here. Yeah, if you're able to. Obviously, don't go with that.
I don't have time to do that.
There's also the state recently came out, which is called the best available nitrogen reduction technology list, which is tied to the Title V changes and all that. There are 4 technologies currently listed on that for residences. There are 2 generally approved technologies and 2 provisionally approved technologies. And you're able to use those because those are the current best performers according to the state.
There is a section on the town's CWMP website now for the IA technologies. And there are about 5 or 6 companies listed.
Yeah.
You can go to the town of
How's that
Barnstable.
relate to the state list?
It's just that they're, they're the same one. Yeah, they're.
The state created their best available nitrogen technology
Yeah,
list
I've
based
seen that
on
list.
this
Okay.
data and some other data that they were able to obtain, but mostly on, so we've heard the word, you've heard nitro a couple of times, so if you click on the technology page, you can see the performance. Ooh. Yeah, these are box plots. They can be, if you're not used to looking, yeah, there's a primer if you want to look at, how to read box plots. I think the most interesting thing is this data analysis tools, the 19 milligrams per liter, that's the old standard. Now we really want to remove more nitrogen than that, but that's what it used to be. And so for the nitro, we've got 95.8 performing below that standard. And you can go and look at any technology and sort of see like what percentage of systems are performing to certain standards.
And you can actually, if you want, this little slider, and if you want to know how well it does against 10.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll tell you 72% of the systems that exist in the field right now meet the 10 milligram per liter standard. So if you take the DEP list in conjunction with our real life data, and you want to choose the best technology, that's how I would suggest doing it. Yes.
My big question is educating the public. I just think that the general public is going to have a problem with urine diversion. Especially people in these $1 million homes. They, that the education piece there, I think is critical.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the reasons why we're putting all the urine diversion technology in the Clean Water Center, because we want people to be able to have the opportunity to come out and see what it looks like. And understand that it's not the same thing that's at a Boy Scout camp or, something that's out at those fixtures are fine for what they're used for, but when it comes to a home, you don't want that. There's actually somebody not too far away from here, in Centerville. They have a house right on the water, and they have composting toilet units in their house. And,
How did you build this out?
or not in this house, but there's another one fairly close by.
Phoenix.
Yep. So we'll have Phoenix units at the test center. If you ever want to see how they work, once we're done setting them up, we're gonna run tours through there on a fairly consistent basis, so you can actually kick the tires. too.
Gotta get, so George,
Saying if we're driving by, we can go in, go to the bathroom and.
Why not? Contribute to science.
just to your point about sort of, changing paradigms, I was talking to George Wickles earlier, who's the founder of MASSTC, among, other people. We were talking about urine diversion, and he was saying to somebody, probably the first time someone moved their outhouse into their house, everyone in their community was probably disgusted, right? So these paradigms shift, right? It's happened before and it can happen again. There's just gotta be the right, it's not mine, like I said, I give that to George, but I think it's a good one, really apt.
That's a good one.
So,
Yes.
so the IA systems, one of the problems, one of the arguments against them is that they don't take out future chemicals of emerging concern. So they're all that stuff is still on the property. But if you had pipes and pumps and pumped it to the septic system, it would take those. But we don't even know what they are yet. So that just say that sort of. But most of the PFAS ends up in the sludge.
A lot of it does.
Yeah.
A lot of it continues on.
Yeah.
So,
Not very much.
we don't fully understand what contains the most yet. It's an active, ongoing area of research. We're at MASSTC, we're working with US EPA to look specifically at these nitrogen reducing technologies, the wood chip systems, to see how they do with a lot of these other contaminants of emerging concern. That project has looked at something like 178 different contaminants, which sounds like a big list, but compared to the number of actual contaminants in the world, it's a small number. And it's not a problem that's specific to on-site systems. It's a problem that relates to wastewater treatment facilities as well. Latently, so, just as things are, right? An on-site system, because the wastewater takes so long for it to travel from point A, your toilet fixture, to point B, the environment. It's a long period of time for those chemicals to be broken down, right? I mean, you're talking on the order of probably from point A to point B, depending on your use, might be 2 weeks, might be a month, depending on, how often you're there. So that those bacteria, the same bacteria that are breaking down the nitrogen and phosphorus and all these other things have some capability of breaking down some of those compounds. And there are bacteria there that we don't even know what they're doing, but you get a long retention time in an on-site system. Treatment plants, you're doing 1 million gallons a day going through. There's very little opportunity to do any treatment on most of those. And if you look at the data, on-site systems do better with contaminants of emerging concern than treatment plants that have no additional components built into them. So a standard treatment plant, most of that stuff is just coming in one side, going out the other side. Now you can, I've heard the argument, yes, now we have it at a single point. We can deploy some additional treatment technology. I ask what that treatment technology is, and I don't get a good answer to what that is. Carbon filtration. Well, you're gonna carbon filter how many hundreds? How many million gallons a day?
In Barnstable, the big, I've been asking for 6 or 7 years, where's the effluent gonna go? And there's no place. I mean, we're not, Falmouth is talking about outfall pipes, but we aren't even talking about that. We don't have a place to put it in the ground. They're talking about reverse osmosis. And then putting it back in the water system. And sending it to the water treatment plant and putting it back.
Yeah,
But that's,
in some respects, we do that same water recycling right now because we have septic systems. It goes into the groundwater, goes back into our drinking water, and we drink it later on again. So
Yeah.
we're doing it now.
Yeah.
Toilet to tap, it's what we do.
one of the points we also spend as a town in Barnstable, we spend probably $500,000 a year shipping sludge to Rhode Island. Does, and DEP is, you know, has approved like Harwich, Yarmouth, Dennis, Mashpee, Orleans, new sewage plants.
Yeah.
So do they have a plan for what's gonna happen to that sludge? What if Rhode Island says no?
I understand Yarmouth's plan is to go to New York State with it. And then when was that? I mean, I guess we just keep going further west. So
Yeah,
somebody says no.
it sounds like municipal waste keeps going west.
It is.
Yeah,
I mean, those are two entirely interrelated subject matters, and municipal waste and wastewater are like two coins, they're two sides of the same coin.
right.
So,
But I agree with Hilda that eventually, you know, we're going from, Barnstable has 1.5 million gallons a day now, we're going to 3.5 million gallons. And if we get to reverse osmosis, no one's gonna be able to afford to pay their sewer bills. If operate, even after we'd spent 30 years building it, we've got operations and maintenance, we have to start rebuilding it after 30 years. You know,
I'll give an example of Holland. 98% of Holland, the Netherlands, is on sewage. All the water's polluted. They have no idea what to do with that. Everything goes to the ocean. All the Baltic Sea is completely polluted. Because if you have more and more people and more sewers, you're gonna have more pollution. Because it's just moved from A to B. And so they have no idea what to do. So they blame the farmers, which are part of the problem. But
I think if you do water conservation, if we priced water coming into the house and being used in our yards, so people didn't think it was free, they think it's free. We get almost no bills, you know, I mean, I'm sure it's paid for somewhere in our taxes, but it's not obvious at the point of use that we're wasting water. We've lived in different places in the Air Force, just, you know, and some of the places we've lived in have been short of water. So they've promoted as a municipality, water conservation by actually giving their customers water saver fixtures, shower fixtures, faucets, toilets that used, you know, 1/3 of what the old toilets used. And they decreased the volume going through their sewer system. So they were able to grow their economy and grow their population. They also went to, with a situation in San Antonio where there was more industry, they went to industry and helped industry figure out, could they use gray water instead of drinking water? Or could they use forced air to rinse out the Coke bottles before they put the Coke in, rather than rinsing it 3 times with wasting drinking water? So I think there's a huge amount that we're not doing because we don't value water at the beginning, where it comes out as the drinking water that's piped to all of our properties. We waste it as gray water, we waste it in our toilets, we waste it in our yards. We're not forced, or we're not incentivized to do water saving landscaping the way a lot of cities have had to do, because they want to avoid combined sewer overflow when it rains. So I think we have a tremendous amount of opportunity that we're not realizing, because we think you know, we're Cape Cod and we don't want to learn from other places. We don't have to copy other places, but we can look at what other solutions have been found and adapt them so that they fit here. And then I think it makes less material going to the wastewater treatment plant and less, I mean, to ship something that's 95% water, sludge is 95% water, okay, we're paying for water weight. You know, we should somehow figure out, okay, how do we run that plant so that at least the material is more dry before we ship it. So I think we have a tremendous number of opportunities actually. But you need to work hard on getting all that workforce and all those people that want to come in and help you figure out the answers.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity myself,
Yeah.
but
Problems are opportunities, right?
yeah.
Jane, can you explain about what flush toilets are? Because there's an issue, people think that urine diversion and eco toilets are not clean, not sanitary.
Oh, there's another whole public health side to flush toilets that it was in the news a few times during the pandemic and then it's quickly squashed. But there's such a thing as a toilet plume. When you flush most toilets, you immediately stand in a plume of aerosolized whatever was in the toilet. And if it's a public toilet and somebody ahead of you was sick, you can get what they had pretty easily. And there's a lot of that written up in public health literature. Pardon? Right, for 20 flushes after the sick person. You know, the 20th person in that public restroom can get their norovirus or.
Make you put the seat cover down.
Right. And most of the public toilets don't have seats, so that's another, it's. Yes.
You call it fluid toilets.
We just shut down this discussion.
Hold your breath.
Takes us up. I was wondering about gray water. Are there legalities about using gray water and you're not?
You can use gray water recycling. It's in the code now, so it's something that can be used.
What is that?
We'll be demonstrating it.
Okay, so what can you use this for? What do you need to put it in?
Primarily lawn irrigation or plant irrigation, is the best destination for it.
You have to put it, we cannot put it on the surface.
It has to be subsurface, yes, but you can do subsurface irrigation pretty successfully. I do it at home in my garden.
It's been there for
It's all
decades.
subsurface.
There's a
Yeah.
house on the edge of Joshua's Pond here in Osterville, and every now and then you see bubbles in that area of the pond, and I'm sure it must be gray water.
Could be. That reminds me, one more thing. I got about PFAS. Does anybody remember the video? I think it was Pat Holmes walking along the side of the pond. You saw those big billowing clouds of foam in the pond. They found that those are loaded with PFAS.
Oh, no.
Keep your pets and families away from them. Yeah. It was fun to play in when you were a kid. I mean, I like playing. Don't do that anymore. The foam has PFAS in it, yeah. From the water body. So water bodies are contaminated with PFAS, the wind blows across, it creates that foam, which is, by the way, the same way that they remove PFAS from water. It's called foam fractionation. Because PFAS likes to adhere to the bubbles. It's a surfactant. It's like a soap material. So it creates the foams. So those foams tend to be pretty heavily laden with PFAS from those water bodies. Yeah, something else to think about. But there is hope.
No, there's so much positive that is happening out there.
Yes.
You know, we're at this, like Sarah was saying, we're at this moment where we're all aware of it. It's in the news, we're aware of PFAS, but we have so much information that we're just getting hit with all at once. So it feels overwhelming, but I feel like, you know, Jane, you guys are a perfect example of, you know, IA and Hilda and Earl have been doing urine diversion since the dawn of man, you know. But, you know, there's all these things that are happening and of course at MASSTC, we have so many different technologies being tested, but this is the exciting time. This is the building time. This is like, let's make some change in the world.